Sorry for the delay in coming. We've had a bit of an issue on the Metrolink system in the last hour or so. So I've been busy sorting that out, which leads me well onto this presentation. Delivering service quality on Metrolink during COVID-19. Apologies, Vicky Mercer was supposed to be joining me today for this presentation, but she's on half term. Actually, got a couple of young children, so she's busy looking after them. Hopefully not doing too much homeschooling as it is half term. So my name's Graham Banks. I'm the travel demand manager at TFGM, and COVID's changed my role completely, to be honest, and I'm sure it will going forward. So this presentation is going to give a bit of an overview of Metrolink, some of the operations, some of the data during COVID, and also then I'll go on to my bit, which is more of a take on how travel demand management will play an important role in Metrolink recovery and some of the challenges that we're going to face. Okay, so just a bit of a background to TFGM. I won't go too much in this. I'm sure some of you are aware of some of the stuff that we do. But ultimately, we devise and deliver transport strategy and policy to support GM objectives with the Mayor Andy Burnham as a portfolio holder for transport. We develop and deliver major schemes, metro expansion, most recently the Trafford Park line, which unfortunately it opened, I think, maybe a week before national lockdown 1. So not a great start for that line. Hopefully things will recover. We're the owner of Metrolink and oversight the contract to operate it. And we do a lot of other things. I mean, in my area particularly, we do all the travel information, fares and ticketing, and customer services. This you might have seen before. This is our people, our place, what we're trying to do. And this is not just in my area, but it's really a people and place approach. Especially to the customer information side, but this has been nicknamed I think it's nicknamed the Death Star from Star Wars. It's showing basically what's going on at the moment in terms of the network, our people, our place. So you've got all the rail lines and air tram lines, but it's also the vision of the future as well, and looking more further ahead, maybe possibly tram train, and that's been discussed quite at length. But you've also got a lot of active travel developments as well. For some reason, I'm not sure if these slides are showing. They're coming up blank for me. Oh, here we go. Is that working all right? Here we go. Metrolink management structure, just as I say, I'll just scoot over these. So Transport Great Management, we're the owner of the network infrastructure, responsible for setting the policy. Important to know that all the revenue we take on Metrolink goes back into the Metrolink system, whether that's developing stops, or whether it's even whole new lines. The operator, Keolis Sami or CAM, they operate the service. They also have the staff in their control room and staff on their platforms, and also the cleaning regimes, etc. And then you've got Metrolink, which is a joint venture between ourselves and CAM to deliver what we put out there. So, and obviously a lot of that's reporting and trying to improve the operational excellence, etc. So this is going back in time, this now, and I hope it's of use. It's expanded Metrolink over the last 20 odd years, 30 years even. The phase 1 was between Altrincham and Bury, if people can remember that, going all the way back. The Queen opened it in 1992. And then we've had like the big bang recently, and especially in the last 10 years, where there's been several lines opening, including the Ashton line, the airport line, and as I mentioned, the recently opened Trafford Park line. I actually found out a cool fact last week. One of the professors at Manchester Uni, she used to work at Metrolink way back in the day. And I'll just give you a bit of story behind this. There was two guys, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Manchester Victoria, Manchester Piccadilly. There was an ambition at one point to have an underground tunnel connecting both. These two guys put forward this proposal. They got denied. So they went to the pub, as you do, to drown their sorrows because their scheme didn't get put forward. And apparently during this pub visit, they actually drew out what they think should be the next phase, and which now is the Transport Metrolink network. So it's maybe a myth, but this is probably on the back of a napkin or something. But apparently what they drew that day is now what you see on the network, and that map that we see today. I'm not sure if this napkin still exists or if it ever did. So continuous improvements, you can see some images here of what we used to have and what we have now. We've got the old trams there and we've got the new trams. Old ticket machines and new ticket machines. Obviously, what we've been trying to push, especially during COVID, is contactless, which has gone up in terms of usage, and it's also safer as well for customers to use. And some more facts here about Metrolink. 99 stops. If you can name them all, well done. I don't think I can. There's a quiz on Twitter the other day trying to do it. Too difficult for me. But you can see the growth and obviously the number of people that actually keeps to keep Metrolink moving. So coronavirus and the impact on Metrolink has been huge, and obviously we have to adhere to government guidelines and government restrictions, and obviously we're in a stay-at-home national lockdown at the moment. So not only does it change the operational impact of Metrolink, but it's been a lot of work on changing on the messaging. Obviously we have to adhere to the government messaging. Every time it changes, whether we're in a tier system or in the lockdown system, we have to change everything in a customer information way, but also on stop and on tram as well. So this is just a bit of data to give you a bit of background in terms of the patronage on Metrolink and how it changed with the lockdown. So you can see on the left hand side of the graph there, the usual patronage is 120,000 a day. And you can just see the sharp fall during lockdown 1, and that was steady all the way through lockdown 1. Some areas it actually grew, and I'll come on to that in a minute. But you can see the drastic effect and the impact it had on the network and revenue ultimately. You can then see during various reopenings, and especially during the summer months leading up to September, when the school kids go back and students like yourselves go back, the gradual rise in patronage, but nowhere near getting to the heights of pre-lockdown. If you see little dips, by the way, in between some of the graphs, that's generally weekend traffic. Obviously, we don't take as many passengers at weekends. Lockdown 2 didn't go down as much as lockdown 1. Slight improvement again during just before Christmas there when restrictions were eased, but then we're straight back into lockdown, obviously, in early January, and that's where we are today. Not as low as during lockdown 1, but still, I think we're still only running around about 20% of usual pre-COVID patronage. This is an interesting data, and this is what's looking at in terms of the lines and population and what people how it's changed during COVID. So the graph on the right is obviously the tram network and Greater Manchester. What it's showing is what areas of Manchester have limited car use, so rely basically on public transport and Metrolink to get to key worker jobs, such as maybe work in hospitals or maybe work in industry or warehouse, etc. And you can see there's a pattern forming in GM about where they actually work and what access they've got to private vehicle, and this is low in some areas, such as the Wimshire area and some parts of Oldham Rochdale. And if you look at the graph to the right hand side, that shows you demonstrating the areas of Manchester where there's actually less reliance on public transport because I've got that car option. And what we've seen is that actually impacts on the patronage of the network. So for example, before COVID, Altrincham and Bury were typically our busiest lines. That's where we took most patronage. And what we've seen, and Oldham Rochdale was one of the least lines. But what we've seen is a reverse. So people in Altrincham and Bury, for instance, may be travelling by car. They may be working at home now, so they don't need to use a service. But people in Rochdale might have access to a car, or maybe work in an industry where tram is essential. So we've seen a shift in the demand on the network, and we've had to put interventions in place to meet that demand. So whether that's extra capacity on them lines, reduced capacity on other lines, we've had to do things to make sure that people who do need the service can still use it. And one of the challenges with doing that, of course, is social distancing. We've all been through COVID at this moment, and we've all got used to social distancing, whether it's on public transport or whether it's in the supermarket. Thinking back to the one in, one out scenario and making sure there was space in between people, that's no different on the Metrolink. One of the challenges, especially during the early part of COVID, was the 2 metre rule, which only allowed 10% of vehicle capacity, so literally only 20 people on each single tram. The 1 metre plus has been brought in, obviously, probably in the last 6 months. The 1 metre plus allows more people onto trams, but still represents only a very low percentage of the available capacity, so only 23% we can use, and that's if customers are wearing face masks. The actual face covering compliance is actually quite high. It does dip in PM peaks for reasons unknown. I'm sure Vicky could have given more data on that, and I'm happy to give my email address if you want any more information on this kind of thing. Happy to answer more questions. But it does dip in the evening. But it's quite consistent with other big cities. Actually, we obviously speak closely to Liverpool and London, etc. And compliance is around about the same. There is obviously a lot of people who don't need to wear a face mask for exemption reasons, health reasons, etc. And these are just some of the things we've done operationally to keep people safe. Closing off ticket machines so people don't stand close to each other, stickers on the floor you can see there on the tram, and taking out seats so people can socially distance safely on the network. And other reason, I think this is one of the best things I think we've done over the last 10 months is our tram ambassadors. They've been put on the network to assist customers. They've been there to help with face mask issues. When I say issues, handing out face masks. We've had really good response from these guys. They go there to help customers. I think there's always been a negative connotation with staff on Metrolink platforms. People think they're checking tickets and all that kind of thing. Well, these guys are literally just there to help customers get around the network for them at the moment, essential journeys. But also hand out face masks if customers have forgot one. I was just in Tesco's last week. I had a face mask in my pocket, but I just forgot to put it on. And the guy at Tesco's, he said hi, and he said, "Do you need a face mask?" And it was, "Oh God, no, I've got one." But it was just a nice way of saying, "I've got one if you need one." And I just thought it was a real good customer experience, because ultimately, we're going to need these customers to come back to us on the network. And I think a great way of doing that is great customer service to retain that loyalty. And finally, this is, like I say, Vicky's section of the presentation. There's a lot of things that we're going through at the moment, a lot of things that we need to do in the next, in the short term and longer term. We've obviously got the recovery plan, because at the moment we're still reliant on DfT funding to keep the network going for them essential trips. We've got to make sure that we can be sustainable financially going forward, making sure that we put in trams where the demand is to help people get around, especially during recovery. Service efficiencies, like I said, that's very important, because we've always been a system that is fair, and that we give, for instance, at the moment, a 10-minute service on all lines. In the future, it might be that we have to be more flexible with our operation, to say that some lines only need a 10-minute frequency, some lines might need a 4-minute frequency, depending on the demand, and I think we need to be flexible in our approach to doing that. Timing of activity is obviously important. We're waiting for the next government announcements and their roadmap to recovery, so we'll have to be in tune with that. And customer confidence is a big thing, because the insight we're getting on all the surveys we're doing is that customers may not feel as confident to travel on Metrolink at the moment, and public transport in general, and maybe not done so in quite a while. So we need to make sure that customers feel confident and safe traveling. But we also think there's an opportunity to look at how we used to travel. I'll come on to a bit more of that in a minute. Oh, the slide's going a bit funny. I'll try that again. So apologies for this. I can't see the whole slide. Has everyone seen the whole slide? Is it? Oh, there we go. Oh, my screen's doing something very funny. What is right? I think I've missed a slide there. But my role as a travel demand management manager at TFGM has changed. What we used to do with travel demand management at TFGM was we used to focus on the big disruptive events that were going to impact travel for customers. And when I say customers, I mean day-to-day commuters, education trips, now key worker trips. But back then it was really looking at the big disruption events and trying to minimise that impact on people moving around, and we want to make people move around easier. So back then it was sporting events, so big football matches, big concerts, disruptive roadworks, which I'm sure we're all aware of, especially in Salford on the Regent Road schemes. I think we've all still got nightmares about that. And it was really to try and manage that demand on the network. And one of the problems that we've had historically, and especially in Manchester and other big cities also, is that we've got a system where we used to have a system in place where everyone travelled at the same time to a specific small area. Manchester is quite a small area once you get into the city predominantly. It was never going to work. It was destined to fail. We've lived with it for years, and we all cram onto the same tram, tube, bus, train, highways, all in a very small period of time. So usually 7:30 in the morning till 9 o'clock in the morning, and the same in the evening, and try and all get to the same place at the same time. It was always destined to fail. So it was our opportunity, and COVID's given us opportunity to try and balance that demand across the network. Obviously, home working's been given us a great advantage in this, but it's something that we really need to look for in going forward. But how COVID's changed the approach to travel demand management, we no longer have them key events. Hopefully we'll get them back, because it's what we need, in life, really, especially the football for me personally. But it's changed. We've seen it, like I mentioned just earlier, we've seen a different demand on the network. We haven't got as much space on public transport, and we need to make sure we can get the people who need to travel able to do so. But we also need to target people who can travel flexibly, so office workers, for example, and make them potentially encourage them to travel in a different way, and a better way for them as well, because they maybe miss them busy tram periods or busy train periods, so they can travel at a different time, perhaps, have a better journey for them and a better journey for others, and spread that demand over a different period of time. And travel demand, it's quite a simple concept in a way. You're basically looking how to retime people to their benefit and to the network's benefit, to remode them. We want a sustainable travel in Manchester, in Greater Manchester. We want people to be walking, cycling. We want them to be getting on public transport. We might be wanting to reroute them, so to avoid congested areas. And we also might, and like I said, this is what COVID has given us. It's given us the opportunity to reduce some kinds of travel. So reducing commuting, which obviously takes a big strain off the network. And I think COVID gives the opportunity. More people will be working at home. But I think one of the key challenges for us as well now is to, once people feel safe to travel again, is to bring them back to the network. Because ultimately, for it to be, especially Metrolink, to be sustainable, we need people back on the network, albeit in a safe way, and hopefully in a better way for traveling, and spread that demand over the day. Okay, so COVID's changed. Like I say, that we've seen different demand issues on the network. So what we've done is not only operationally put services where the demand is. We've tried to communicate messages to customers to try and really get them to travel in a different way. And the way we did this is looking at different sector reopenings. If we think back to the return of leisure and retail, we tried to make sure that staff that worked in retail could get there safely, so encourage a later shopping trip, for example. When I think back to the school reopening, and we've potentially got another school reopening coming soon in March, is to make sure that people that are going on educational trips can get there safely, and make sure they've got a space on the tram, train or bus. So really encouraging people to still use public transport, but if they can travel flexibly, do it not in these peak hours, which we'll push out on our website to make sure that people can do it. And that's a capacity creation technique. It's not really putting operational things in place, so extra bus services at peak times or extra trams at peak times. It's marketing and comms as well, and trying to get the message out there, and potentially working with schools, etc., to make sure that pupils are aware of the opportunities available on public transport to them. I think there was a video there, but it stopped playing. Unfortunately, it was one of we worked with the interchanges in Manchester to make sure that people could see quite a graphic video of how they could do things a bit different. These are some of the other examples that we've done. Obviously, there was a Do Your Bit campaign with the combined authorities, Marketing Manchester and everyone, to everyone to come together, and everyone as one, we can do something a bit different to help the good. And a lot of that was about sustainability, making sure that people didn't know the best cycle routes, walking, etc. I'll come on to a bit more of that in a bit. Okay, so a big part of the work that we do is data-led. We've got various data streams that come into us at TFGM, and especially in my area, and we're also looking at new opportunities all the time. If you look at the graphic there with the map of GM, what we've recently acquired is mobile phone data, and that gives us a lot of origin and destination of what people are doing. So it'll say, for example, this was a bonfire night at Heaton Park in 2019. What you're seeing on this map here, and what it gives us an impression of, is where people are traveling from to get to this event. And what it then gives us is what interventions we have to put into place to assist that event. So it might be, if you live in if we see a cluster of people that, which is obvious, live to Heaton Park, are going to be going to the event. Based on previous year's data, we can encourage that cycle and walking trip. If people are travelling from further afield, north of Heaton Park, and there's some clusters in Salford and also in South Manchester, what options have they got to get to the park? So we use phone data, and if you look at the image on the right hand side there with the blue circles, what we do is we look at public transport provision. This is for the school's September campaign, I think. And what we're trying to determine is hotspots on the network where we think there might be a public transport capacity issue. There might be the demand outstrips the supply. So we look at these areas and we look at interventions we can put in place to assist these problem areas. So it might be extra school buses, which we've done most recently. It could be concentrating on flexible travellers of the network to avoid these services, and there's some techniques that we can do, and I'll show you one of them on the next slide, I think it is. But really, a lot of it is actually stakeholder engagement, working with businesses around them schools, working with the schools themselves to say, we might have an issue here with school kids getting to school and away from school. What can we do to help to make sure they make that journey? Ultimately, school kids have to get to school. We need to make sure that the education sector keeps going. And if we can target people to be flexible, that's what we'll continue to do. And this is what it comes out with some of the customer comms. Looking at the hotspots data, and this is looking at the school piece I just mentioned, we can try and formulate into more of a customer-friendly message, some advice we want to give people. I think we're all aware now of the RAG ratings. When I say RAG, red, amber, green, most supermarkets have these now. When you go into the doors, you see red, stay outside, green, go in. We've been using these in transport for years as a symbol of a warning symbol, I guess. What we're trying to do, and you might see it on some phone apps now as well in terms of capacity on public transport, what we're trying to do is encourage people to travel in the green areas. That's where there's less demand, and really it's a warning, especially during these school ingress and egress times, that you might not be able to get on a tram or bus because they're already full. And we don't want people to do that. We want people to travel when it's quieter. One of the things that we've been updating in the last year, I'm sure everyone on this call uses Google or Move It or Citymap or one of the big journey planner apps. We're able to infiltrate their platforms with disruption information, which is vital to getting the big message out. We're very aware that not everyone comes to TFGM for travel information. There is obviously huge international journey planners that most people probably use. And what's great is been working with these guys to push out our disruption information, including the Metrolink disruption that's ongoing now, which I'm going to have to go to in a minute. But what's great is we can target areas, services, and input disruption information so it goes first hand to the customer. So whether that's a road closure, a Metrolink disruption, a big sporting event, we can get this message out through journey planners to customers all over GM. And I think one of the big pieces of work that we've got upcoming is something that we've already started is, and this is in tune with Boris's announcement on Monday, is the sector reopenings. What's the plan for what's coming up? And we had this last year in terms of retail and then the leisure. We've got to think about this coming up. So we've got the educational sector coming up. But more longer term, we've got to start thinking about events coming back. They nearly came back just before lockdown. We're already planning for them. One of the things that customers have been telling us, and it's a key part of our work at the moment, is what customers are wanting and what they're particularly concerned about is warning disruption information. So we've got a great piece of work continuing with that, and the disruption tool that I just showed is a vital part of that. Crowdiness info is always been one of the things that we want to improve, and especially now so that we've got social distancing in place. People want to know before they leave home how busy a service is going to be. So that's something that we're really keen to work with. Hopefully we'll have some news on that with Metrolink soon. It's our ambition, like I say, for you to be at home on the app and saying, right, my tram's due, it's green, that means there's space for me to get to work safely. That's our ambition. And real-time departure information, we think everyone's really keen on. And like I mentioned, this is just one of our maps for recovery and the stage process of the sector reopening. The split in the middle, we've got safety-centric themes, because that's where we are at the moment. We're still pushing, and we still will push how safe the network is, but then it gets to the point when things are lifted a little bit in terms of smaller events, maybe going back to the office, and hopefully some bigger events in the future. Thinking ahead so far as September and Parklife, for example, we really want to build the confidence then of people being able to travel safely on the network and to keep it sustainable. One of the things that this is one of the pieces just we've just finished working on really is promoting active travel. Obviously, TFGM has a big part to play in active travel in terms of, and especially recently with the emerging active travel fund, cycle lanes, etc. One of my key points, and it was a bit of an internal struggle really at times, was to promote walking. When I say an internal struggle before COVID, I wanted to promote walking between stops instead of getting Metrolink for them shorter stops. Obviously, there's a financial impact on that because people want people to buy tickets for the trams. Ultimately, because of social distancing capacity restraints, sometimes during a disruption like the one that's ongoing at the moment, bus services can't take customers because they're already full. So it's encouraged people to walk. So we've done a great piece of work recently on trying to encourage, if there is a disruption, to walk 1 or 2 stops. And ultimately, it's good for you, it's healthy, but it's also possibly quicker than waiting for a bus replacement service. So this is one that went live not too long ago. And my ambition is really to not only encourage us in terms of disruptions, but really to encourage it as a way of life. So instead of getting the Metrolink for maybe 1 or 2 stops, if it's only a 20-minute walk, you'll be able to follow out easy to follow maps to do that journey by walking or potentially cycling as well. I mentioned events. We've been working closely with the football clubs and other arenas because ultimately fans and customers will be going back to the venues at some point, fingers crossed. What we've been trying to work on with the clubs, and especially, and it might be rolled out, it's in terms of staggered arrival. Now, staggered arrival for football clubs gives them the opportunity to do safety checks, for example, more security checks, etc., etc. But it also gives the advantage of spreading that demand over a period on their footprint, which in turn gives us the opportunity to spend that demand on public transport. So that helps all of us. I've just seen something come up there about events might be small for a while. I agree. I think there's going to be a slow build up in terms of events, and I think it's going to be a long time before we see a football match with full capacity, unfortunately. But I think it's baby steps, and I think this is a good thing for the long run in terms of spreading that demand. I think it's something that we're working very closely with the clubs with, and it's there's been some great progress with, especially with the football clubs in the last 2 years. They see the importance of sustainability. They're very at the moment, it's baby steps, like I say, but they really do want to encourage more people walking and cycling to football fixtures, and we've been speaking to both clubs about this. So that piece of work isn't going anywhere. It might be far in the future, but it's something that we're still involved in. And this is our right mix vision. This is my final slide before I have to shoot off. There's a great appetite, obviously. This is the right mix vision we want to give for 2040 in terms of reducing the number of car trips and increasing the number of trips by sustainable travel. So, and Metrolink's a part of that, obviously, but really encouraging cycling and walking as well. So big ambitions, a long way to go, but ultimately a lot of the COVID situations brought forward some of these right mix visions. A part that's clean air. We noticed, especially during lockdown one, the change in clean air brought forward that maybe we need to be more ambitious and bring the 2040 vision a bit closer. I've seen loads of questions and loads of hands. I'm really sorry, I'm gonna have to shoot. Happy if you could send these over to me, and I'll answer all of them, I promise. And I hope that's been really useful. Apologies again, I've just got to shoot for this Metrolink disruption that's ongoing. I'm just glad I was able to get some time to come and present, and I hope that was really useful. And like I said, please send over all your questions, and I will do my best, and Vicky will also answer as well. Thank you.